Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Committee of a Whole meeting for July 29th. If the clerk could please read the roll.
Councilmember Wood.
Here.
Councilmember Spatafor. Councilmember Washington. Here. Councilmember Spitzley. Here. Councilmember Hussein. Here. Councilmember Dunbar. Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Garza.
Councilmember Dunbar does have an excused absence, and so that takes us to the minutes of July 22nd. Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move the minutes of July 22nd, 2019.
We have a motion on the minutes. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose. Passes unanimously. This is an opportunity for public comment. You have up to 3 minutes. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to make public comment, this is their opportunity. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? You can go right up. You don't have to sign in on anything, Mary. Just when you go to the podium, state your name for the record.
I have a question to ask.
You got to get to the podium first so they can hear us.
I'm Mary Reynolds, as if you didn't know.
Pull the mic down. You pull it down. Yep, there.
My voice carries in an arena. Okay, on your discussion action on the ordinance amendment, Chapter 288, Section 288.21, Chief Strategy Officer, I'm asking because I don't know. I seen a copy and it says minimum. What exactly are you doing with the ordinance? Are you asking for all of the parts you put in to qualify the person that you want to have and come and help you? Or are you taking some out?
We'll let you have your 3 minutes. When you're done, then I can answer that question for you.
Okay.
Okay?
That's really the only question I have.
All right, thank you. What the ordinance is there are particular chapters or particular portions in here for department heads that have minimum requirements. And if they don't meet those minimum requirements, then you have to get a waiver from City Council to be employed. And so this meets the minimum, would be the minimum requirements for this particular position, since we are creating a chief strategy officer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I just didn't want to take it for granted with my brain.
All right, thank you. That takes us to our first resolution, which has to do with immigration. Councilmember Washington, if you'd like to explain this and what your thought process is on moving
Sure.
forward.
Thank you, Madam President. On July 12th, I attended the Liberty Lights rally that was held on the Capitol steps, and it was coordinated by the Latin American Labor Council. And during that time, they were discussing the situation at the border, the United States and the Mexican border, and discussing the treatment of the folks that are on that border. And we were moved at that rally to do something about it, which what we can do is address our federal colleagues and ask them to make sure that folks are being treated humanely and that they move quickly on immigration reform. This has been going on for way too long, and it is causing a crisis. And I also think that it is incredibly important that the international community come together and address some of the issues that are causing folks to have to leave their countries. This is not just folks from Latin American countries. There are people there from Haiti trying to get through, Cameroon, and we could go on and on. But regardless of your political view on what's happening at the border, these are human beings. And we have to do everything in our power to ensure that we are treating them humanely and giving them what they need as far as safety, food, health care. We have to demand that children not be separated from their parents. This is just unconscionable. So I felt moved that, and I'm certain that my colleagues would come together as one voice and state what we would like and to take it forward, have it sent to our federal government who can move on immigration reform and can ensure that folks are being treated humanely. So with that, I put the resolution together, and I'm hoping that all of you will be on board with passing it. Thank you.
What we, and what the plans would be is, if everyone concurs, is to have all of our names on it like we do for a tribute. And what we would do then is have this before council on August 12th, and members of LACLA would be here to accept the resolution. Are there any questions or concerns? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you for bringing that. First of all, put my name on it, certainly, but when I put my name on it, I would also back up any type of support. Like if they say we need to house people in Lansing, for example, we need to all be prepared to say, you're welcome, yes. If they say they need a stipend or some money, we might have to be prepared to donate some of something. But if it's just for, general purposes, for example, similar to what seems like the Paris Accord, we all backed it, but it really does specify specific things that needs to happen. So you can still put my name on it, but I just want to say that when we put our names on it, that's what we're really doing.
And we have passed on more than one occasion our Welcoming Cities resolution that does talk about that. And again, I think if you look back to some of the things that we've done in the past, we definitely have reached out and do have those abilities with that. So, yes, Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm supportive as well. My only concern is that I'm not going to be here August 12th. I have continuing education classes in Ann Arbor the week of the 12th, so that's, I guess, send my regards.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Councilmember Washington.
I just want to say to Councilman Jackson, I agree with you 100%. And Vince Delgado and I did work very hard to make us an official welcoming city, which would encompass those types of things also. So thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay, then unless someone says they don't want their name on this will come out then on the 12th, and a presentation will be made at that time.
Do you want a motion on this now, or have it come on the 12th too?
When we do our tributes and things, those go on without.
Okay, so we're gonna do this as a tribute now
Yes.
instead of a, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's a tribute resolution, it's still a resolution. Yes, Vice President Spatafor.
I'm just reading, if the final B for further resolve clause implies we're sending it to the state legislature. Did that mean to be congressional delegation, or are we sending it to the state house and senate?
No, it's to the federal,
Okay.
Michigan legislation.
Will the sponsor be
legislative
open?
Delegation in Washington.
Okay.
So we should add the words "in Washington" upon adoption. Okay? All right. Next takes us to the ordinance on the chief strategy officer. If you remember during our budget talks, there were a couple of things that we talked about. Not only putting money aside, but making sure that as part of that, we adopted a resolution that had the minimum standards for the chief strategy officer, to make sure that some of the things that we had worked on as part of the draft position were included in that. We also had asked about having a reporting mechanism with that. It was something that was added to one of the drafts, but since then, the city attorney's office has indicated that we could not put that in, the reporting mechanism in the ordinance, but we could by resolution. So if the city attorney's office could please expound a little bit on that, because I think that was a really concern for us, that there be some mechanism that would allow for us to make sure that we were getting reports in a timely fashion. And if this particular ordinance where it's located doesn't permit for that, is there another place?
Good evening. Thank you, Council President Wood. The city, in reviewing this morning and discussing with the city attorney, we realized that the council has the authority under heads of departments, and this is Chapter 4, 401.1, to indicate the qualifications of the person for the position. Unfortunately, council does not have the ability to place requirements within the ordinance, just the qualifications. A reporting requirement to, for this position would not be allowable. However, the qualifications that council put in is allowable. So we suggested that the ordinance, we delete the reporting requirement out of the ordinance and that be brought by a separate resolution requesting the administration for quarterly reports from the CSO, Chief Strategy Officer.
Well, I'm going to say, and I'm sure there's others that are going to chime in, when we had this discussion during the budget process and we kept talking about how we could have some checks and balances on this, the city attorney sat there and said, well, you can put it in the ordinance that you're putting together. So we kept saying that that was part of what we were going to be working on. I'm very disappointed that we're now finding out that that's something that that now can't be part of a requirement. We can ask, and I'm sure there's each one of us that can think of times that we have asked the administration for something, and I don't mean this derogatory, Samantha, and not gotten a response, or it's taken some time. So for me, the idea of making it a request to the administration that we would get these is a little disconcerting. So I'm really bothered by the fact that we're this far down the line, and this is what we're at. Councilmember Spitzley, Councilmember Hussein, Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. I do recall, first of all, excuse me, the whole concept of the Chief Strategy Officer. I think members of this council and the financial health team thought it was just a critical step in assisting the city to look at, our processes from top down to the bottom and provide recommendations on where we can, seek out efficiencies to make our city better. And I know that I was really pleased when the mayor, agreed that was the correct way to go and then committed to working with us on this. I also remember that we wanted to make sure that there was a way that council was kept in the loop. This wasn't a first time we talked about it. It wasn't a second time we talked about it. It wasn't a third time we talked about it. We've consistently said that we want to be able to be brought in. We want to be able to be brought on, informed of what's been going on. And so these quarterly meetings or whatever it was, and I think we finally compromised on quarterly. I think we had wanted something else, and we compromised on quarterly. And so, you guys know I don't like 12-hour changes, and I don't like stuff coming to us at the last minute,
Oh, we have time on this, so.
No, but we're here now
Oh,
talking
no.
about it. If there was a concern, again, this wasn't our first time talking about it. If there was a concern, I wish, we would have been able to have a discussion or even bring forth a recommendation. But to just say it can't be part of this document, it concerns me as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Hussein, then Councilmember Washington.
I don't want my comments to necessarily just be a reiteration of what's already been said, but, I fear that's what it will be. I'm frustrated as well. First, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Washington and Councilwoman Spitzley for spearheading the effort to get this position funded. I think it's a critical position that needs to be funded in perpetuity, and again, I really appreciate their efforts, as well as the efforts of the FHT and the administration for supporting. I am frustrated as well because there was a lot of discussion during the budget process in terms of where this position would be housed. And when it was ultimately decided that it would be housed within the administration or in the mayor's office, that there would be accountability to the council, and that we could carve that out in the ordinance. So to hear this now is incredibly frustrating. And again, when we put rules and regulations and roadmaps in place, we have to remember that we're not just putting them in place for this council or this administration, but for future councils and future administrations. And we certainly don't know what the interplay will be in the future between those respective bodies. So I'm concerned.
Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. As far as putting it in minimum qualifications, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Aboud, that what they do is not necessarily a qualification. My burn with this is the financial health team actually initially wanted the position to report to both council and the mayor, much like the city attorney, because it is too easy for a mayor, and I am not speaking of this mayor, but he may be gone in 2 years, we don't know. It is too easy to hire someone and direct them to do exactly what you want them to do and not have it be an unbiased, objective review of what's going on with the budget, with the contracts, with departments and everything else. And so this is concerning to me because we're not getting, I really don't feel we're getting what we fought for and what the financial health team was asking for. And so if there is no reporting qualification, I don't even know if it would make sense to bring somebody on board. I'm just at that point right now because there's nothing stating what this person will do, what the reporting requirements are, and I'm just hoping, I'm concerned that this could at some point become a pawn for somebody's own benefit and own purposes, and that's concerning to me. I think there needs to be, I wish we could have gone with what the FHT wanted, where they would report to both council and the administration. So since this isn't something we're going to pass tonight, I would like more time to think about it.
Okay. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess what I would ask you is to convey to whomever to bring us back some options then of how what they feel would be the best mechanism, because I'm very I'm adamant and I feel very strongly that there needs to be some way for council to be also a part of this. And again, I do remember that they wanted the position to report both to council and the mayor, and I know that we can't, there's a charter issue and some other reasons why we couldn't do it. I get that. But, so now we're here, so I'm expecting then, since the people who say no need to come back with options for us to consider. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I just wanted to share my thoughts. So the chief financial officer is basically going to have to recommend very tough decisions to the administration, decisions that one politician or mayor, whoever it is, probably can't make alone. So, we knew it was going to be in their administration, but it also provides someone that's going to provide a little more expertise, because as electeds, we're all, regular people that have our own areas. But when it comes to a comprehensive plan like this is supposed to be, I'm interested to see what those recommendations are and whether or not they'll be followed. So, because that's what the bottom line is. We can measure performance by pension or our financial status. So I'm interested to see what happens.
I think what we will do, we've got this before us, there was a recommendation about a resolution. We'll ask to see that. We'll also ask for the city attorney's office to do some additional research on this. I think that, you know, part of the concern that we had as a body was, and again, not necessarily this administration, but there can be, as Councilmember Jackson said, a number of tough choices, and if those don't even get to council to have an opportunity, you know, if we don't realize that those are some of the things that are on the plate, to be able to look at those decisions, and for, you know, whether a mayor would say, well, that's, you know, I don't think we should even do that, so I'm not even going to bring it forward. We should at least, that's why we're hiring this person, is to have some of those options out there so that we can at least discuss them as a body. So I think that's, you know, that's where we are right now. At least we have the framework moving forward, and we will then look at to see if there's some additional things that we can do. All right. Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, this is more of a question for the attorney, I think, but can the budget priorities be amended to be more specific about the spending direction of these dollars? It says we should work together with council, the administration, the FHT, and the unions to establish an ordinance or contract outlining expectations and reporting alongside the committee that we've formed. How specific can spending directives be within the budget priorities of the city council? Chalk it up to me being
That-
newer.
Excuse me, before the city attorney, that is not a priority. That was part of our resolutions.
Right, yeah, the policies and resolutions, the
Yes,
one
of
adopted
our
with the, alongside
policies.
the budget. How
All right.
specific can those directives be?
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Spatafor. We'll be happy to research that and get back to you with an answer.
Yeah, thank you. I'm aware in somewhere like 207, I just had it open, 3.207, we can't direct other employees of the city, but certainly through the power of the purse, maybe we can encourage a little bit more, is what I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that takes us down to our next item, and that's the state of Michigan Department of Treasury. And I see that we have Sharon here from our assessor's office. Sharon, if you could come, you can either sit next to Samantha or you can use the other table, whichever you'd like. All right. In your package, you will see that we had received a letter from the Department of Treasury, and if you could, Sharon, go over this letter with us and explain to us some of the items and issues that the Secretary of State's office was, Secretary Treasurer's office was looking at. Thank you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to introduce myself. I haven't met everyone. I'm Sharon Frischman. I'm the city assessor. I know Eric and I talked about this issue earlier today, but the state of Michigan State Tax Commission, they have, and it's a good program, they are doing audits by county of local units to make sure that some basic assessing procedures and practices are met. The word audit's kind of scary,
Yes.
but this is basically, this is not an audit that would change any assessment roll numbers, any tax roll numbers, any taxes collected. It's simply an audit of our processes and procedures to make sure that we're meeting some minimum requirements. There was an audit in 2013 here for Ingham County. They do it by county, so since most of our properties are in Ingham County, we follow that schedule. And then again in 2018. Out of the 11 points, they found 4 that they felt were deficient. I had contacted them as a result of that with a plan to address those deficiencies. That plan was approved by the State Tax Commission.
Can you
And then
go-
this is,
To interrupt you, Sharon,
Sure.
can you go over what those 4 points were, please?
oh, sure. I have to read my notes, because honestly, I didn't remember what they were either. Okay, one of the deficiencies was that we did not have, and I don't want to get too much into technical jargon here, but ECFs are economic condition factors. That's something that's done to ensure through our mass appraisal process that we're using information from the market to determine assessments, that we aren't just sort of slapping any old number on there. Our industrial class is actually our smallest section of, or property class in the city. You'd think that in a big city like Lansing, we'd have more industrial property, but we do not have a ton of industrial property, just a few big ones. So they found that we did not calculate an economic condition factor for that class that year. We have very few sales to actually use to calculate these factors. So we
You should
rely.
now.
Pardon me?
You should now.
Getting some more of them, that's for
Yes.
sure. But in 2018, well, we were starting to come back, but for the 2018 roll, we're using sales from 16 and 17. So, but quite often we rely on the county equalization department to help us with those values, and that's what we did for 2018. So, so that was one of the deficiencies. One of them was land value maps. This is sort of a sore spot with me because it's kind of ridiculous to expect that we would print land value maps. Just to give you an idea, they want the land value printed on a map for each parcel. Well, it would take, hundreds of pages
Yeah.
to print something like that, and no one ever looks at them. So I did a few years ago get permission to have an electronic assessment roll. So I suggested that because we have permission for an electronic assessment roll, we can provide those maps electronically. And they did agree with that, and approved it, and they have actually subsequently removed that requirement from the AMAR.
Great.
We had some land values that had adjustments to them without a reason being stated for that. We had, in 2017, there were 1,700 or so that had adjustments without a reason. We've corrected that to, it should be 0 right now.
So were these 1,700 that you had, did that have to do with people coming forward and asking for their assessments to be changed? Or was it the fact that you sent some assessors out there and they looked at the value of the property and made a different determination, or?
Yeah, a lot of them were valid adjustments, but if there's not a reason for it, then, I instructed staff to take the adjustment off if there's not a reason for it. But quite often it would be something like railroad property that doesn't have actually any road frontage, and trying to think of another example. Not a lot of, landlocked, something like that, wetlands, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last thing was, and we didn't quite figure out what the problem was, but Form 5076 is the small taxpayer exemption, if you're familiar with that. Any personal property account holder that has true cash value of equipment, $80,000 or less, they can file this form and not pay any tax. It's an outright exemption. We processed, we processed a little over 1,000 of those in 2018. And apparently there was one where they couldn't find the form, or we couldn't figure out if they couldn't find the form or if a signature was missing. But either way, we, I instructed staff, they know, don't process anything without a signature. So we still haven't really figured out what that problem was. But again, they've made some changes in the law since 2018 regarding this as well. And now the small taxpayer only has to file that exemption once. They call it the one and done. They file once, and then they're supposed to, if they ever go over the 80,000, they're supposed to let us know. So, but, so they don't file those annually anymore.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. And when again did that go into effect?
The one and done rule?
Yes.
Last year, sometime last year.
What if someone has signed that form and did what they're supposed to do, and they're still getting notices and/or bills?
They should call me,
Okay,
for sure, yeah.
all right. Thank you.
So basically, that's it. We addressed those concerns, and then they do, as a matter of procedure, a follow-up for the 2019 roll. I've sent them a copy of our database, and they don't look at it themselves. They do contract with a third party to do these audits. So the third party has our assessment roll electronically right now, and we're sending the 5076 forms that they've requested. So there shouldn't be any problems.
So once you've gone through this, is this repetitive that you're going to be audited each time for a period of time, or is it?
It's a 5-year cycle, so
Okay.
we will be audited again in 2023.
Okay, all right. And then can you speak a little bit to the data collection that you're doing on the south end?
Oh, sure. And we're just starting there, and
Yeah.
that's actually,
So you're
state-
going to be doing it for the entire state?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Oh, yes.
So you're starting on the
We're
south?
starting on the south end. We just figured, well, we'll start there and sort of snake our way
Okay,
up to the north end. And that's really something that we should have been doing all along. We do some property inspections when when a property is sold. Sometimes if the sales price is real wacky compared to the assessment, we'll go out and take a look at it. Of course, if there's a building permit, we're out there taking a look at it. But as far as just verifying the property information to make sure it's accurate and up to date, we're way behind in doing that. And that's the backbone of a good mass appraisal system, is to have good information on each property. So,
are you doing new pictures as well?
Yes.
Will those be going up on BS9?
yes,
then?
yes.
Okay.
Those should go up fairly soon after we've been there. We had a summer intern working for us this summer. She's going back to school next week, so it'll be a few weeks before our staff gets caught up with loading all of those pictures up, I think, but should be fairly soon.
And what is the chance when you're doing this data collection of catching properties that are rental instead of owner occupied?
That would not be one of the ways that we would catch something like that.
Okay.
I did recently do an export that listed all of the PREs, the principal residence exemption claims in the city, and all of the properties that don't have one, and forwarded that to Scott Sanford so he can sort of check with his list. But from doing the inspections, we wouldn't uncover something like that.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Sharon? Seeing none, then we want to thank you for coming in and explaining the information to us, and letting us know that you've now complied with all of those things, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, that ends the items that we had on committee of a whole. I wanted the audience, as well as I mentioned it to council members, know that our next committee of a whole will be August 5th. There will not be a council meeting that night. We are having a series of presentations that evening. We are having ranked choice voting that will come in and talk to us about that. We are also waiting for some information back from the Secretary of State's office that we're waiting to hear back from. The next presentation we will have is, I'm not sure if we're still saying interim, or whether we're saying chief, or whether we're saying Daryl, but Daryl Green will be here, and we'll talk a little bit about his vision and the things for LPD. So we'll have a presentation by Chief Green. The other is, the last one that we will be having is Brian McGrain would like to come before council and talk about code compliance. He wants to talk about trash, grass, and weeds, how those issues are brought to the attention of code officers, how they deal with those issues once they come before them, what the process is, and then if someone does not comply, how the city deals with that. So if you have people that have talked to you about code compliance and things that they're concerned about, that would be their opportunity to come down to that committee of a whole meeting. They would have an opportunity to address on any of those items that I talked about before council on the 5th. We'll be meeting at 5:30, but I think, and we will also have BWL that is supposed to tell us exactly where they are in the stump removal. So those are the items that we'll have up. So again, any of you council members that have had constituents that have issues with those things, please make sure that they're aware of those. And added to the list now will be whether we have information back from the city attorney on the chief strategic officer, or whether we won't have that back until the 12th, but hopefully we'll have some additional information. All right. With that, unless there's anything else, we are adjourned until 7.
Excuse me, Councilwoman Woods, could I approach?